Hi, this is an audio commentary by Mark on The Curse of Count Jugula. This opening scene was shot rather late in the piece, right near the end, because we had an original shot of Leighton, but we discovered that Lachlan was standing to the side in the darkness and we really couldn't use it. The intention of this opening scene is that Leighton is in bed asleep and he's dreaming, so the idea of putting Lachlan appearing above him just like this also came rather late. I hadn't realised that I could do it until right near the end of making the movie, and I decided it would be a better way to convey that what we're about to see is really a dream sequence for Leighton, because the idea of the dream is rather important later on in the film. So what we cut to here is a shot down our hall with some lighting. The inspiration for this little walk down the hall comes from a German expressionist film called Nosferatu, and the long claws sort of a homage to that. Of course, this is supposed to be part of Leighton's dream, and you'll see here in a moment it cuts to Leighton cringing in his bedroom. What we did is we tried to place filters over this to make the film look older and give it sepia or black and white tones to give it the impression of an old film that had been sort of patched back together after many years. The reason we did that too was that was part of the original idea of the film, even though it wasn't in the original script, was that we were going to do a silent film, and that got dropped as I started writing the script, and the original sequence kind of began here with the sunset. This sunset was taken on a lookout just past Winmalee one morning, and the writing you just saw there, The Curse of Count Jugula, is actually the writing you see in the Rocky Horror Picture Show movie, and that and some of the ending sequence of the film is actually based upon Rocky Horror Picture Show. This sequence here is meant to be a kind of reawakening. We've gone through the nightmare of Leighton's dreams, and now we move back into daytime, and we're brought back to reality and his house. And so as the camera moves into the house, the music rises, and we see them in bed asleep. The music that you're listening to is actually patched together from a Wagner piece, which I can't say the name of. It's some German piece, Die Hollander or something like that, and it's a much longer piece in the original. Leighton was actually just acting there. Jen actually really was asleep. I sort of snuck into the bedroom. This was filmed later in the day with Lachlan tossing and turning, and of course he's awake. Unlike everybody else, the idea is that he's really hyped up, and we find out the reason why. It's because he's been drinking too much red cordial. This scene here again was one of those things shot entirely out of sequence. Lachlan put that cap down, and then in our original shot we discovered that the cap had mysteriously appeared back on the bottle, so we had to shoot this again a week later and get everything back in exactly the right position. So he comes in here, and of course the joke is we're connecting the idea of the red cordial with blood, which is going to be useful for the rest of our film, and there's Leighton being very, very mature. Of course the joke is that the youngest boy, Jimmy in this case, is much more mature than his older brother Tommy, who drinks red cordial. And of course that's the point of the glass being placed there, is that Jimmy is being a very sensible boy and drinking water instead. And so this next part here is just a bit of a joke, a bit of an in-joke. Every time we have breakfast or dinner or something, Lachlan ends up on the toilet, so naturally enough where Tommy is he's in the toilet, and here he comes. He rushes out, still got the same besmeared top on. That the cordial actually didn't do that, you probably guessed. We actually had to smear strawberries and tomato paste and everything in it to get it to do that. And of course there we're reinforcing the idea that Jimmy drinks water and Tommy drinks red cordial, and here they are facing off against each other in this two shot, so establishing the kind of rivalry between the two boys. Yes, and looking back. So this was inserted much later. We did this for the ending sequence. The idea of the monster mash we wanted to play, but we felt like it had to be embedded somewhere within the story. We had to clean out our entire pantry to get that shot. one morning. Took quite a long time. It gave us opportunity to clean it. Actually, it rather needed it. The cut here now, where Jimmy has the idea to make money from selling Tommy's red cordial, is done with a musical sequence with Spuds on the job, and it's taken from a Bob Builder album, but the whole thing had a lot of references to Spud chasing away scarecrows and things like that, which really weren't useful for our movie. So I had to cut the whole thing in several places on the beat and join it all back together to try and make a seamless song here for Leighton to build his table in which he's going to sell his red cordial. Of course, for those of you who don't know our family as well and are listening to this, part of the joke here is that Leighton's actual nickname is Spud, so it was really, really good for us to do this for our movie. Leighton had a lot of trouble doing that, and I told him in the end, just move it backwards and forwards over the top. Nobody's going to notice you're not really cutting it. He was really trying his hardest to do it exactly right, which is, Leighton in some ways has some similarities to his character Jimmy. Again, we're trying to re-establish here in this shot the whole idea that while Jimmy is working hard and very conscientious, there's Tommy climbing trees and going mad because he's high on red cordial. So Jimmy drags us all back out, and again, one of the problems we had with this movie is timing everything to the musical beat, so that as that comes up, the song stops. This sequence here was really difficult for us. The main difficulty was basically noise. Our Macquarie Road seems to be a fairly quiet road, but when you actually go out there and shoot, and you have to get a decent shot in between cars going and also get the right acting, it's very, very difficult. And you'll notice in some parts of this there's always the disappearing sound of a car between cuts, and it was almost impossible to avoid that in the end. This little boy here is Toby, our neighbour, and that man walking there is his father, Adam. There's me on the bike. The paper hitting Leighton was to establish something else in a later scene. So this whole scene was to establish the rivalry between Leighton and Toby's character, and also the fact that Leighton really isn't doing very well trying to sell his red cordial. But we also needed to establish the whole idea of the vampire stakes in the movie. It seems a little anomalous since this isn't actually part of his dream, but anyway, that's just the way it is. You're not meant to think too much about it. So Tommy gets upset, he takes his paper in, and of course the paper is really part of the whole point of the scene, was how do we get a little boy like this to end up with a paper, because he needs to see an advertisement from Count Jugula. Count Jugula, of course, is supposed to be a local vampire. Of course, we again have dream intruding upon reality here. A local vampire who is trying to buy up wooden stakes in the area so that he can't be staked by all the crazy people trying to kill him. And so this brings up a continuing pun throughout the movie, the steak that you eat, and of course the wooden stake. So naturally in the ad I had to include the idea of barbecues, burning the steaks of the barbecues, but of course the obvious confusion being that the steaks that you want on the barbecues are the ones you eat. So he realises there's something wrong here, that the paper that's hit him earlier on has actually knocked him out, and this has all been a dream. So here I am as a zombie painted up in grey and getting a lot of looks. We had people stopping in cars, and several people stopping in cars to look at this. Several people stopped to actually buy drinks too, which was rather funny, until we told them it was just water with food colouring. And of course the screaming here there is not Toby, but actually Leighton screaming in our lounge room one night. We had to add that in later. So now we start the whole second half of the film, the sequence where Leighton goes to Count Jugula's house. And of course there's the overturned table after Toby's been attacked by the zombie. Leighton, it was actually in the script that Leighton should ride with his trainer wheels on, but he actually had quite a bit of difficulty. He doesn't actually ride his bike very much, and that shot was done without him on the bike, of course. I just ran along with it on the bike. And this is one of my favourite things. Thank you. Yes, I got that sound off the internet. It was the very, very last thing I did in the movie was put that sound effect in of the car alarm, and some people may not find that funny, but it amused the hell out of me. Anyway, here's Leighton approaching Count Jugula's house. We'd originally tried to convince the people at Bunda, which is actually a house that looks like a huge castle in Springwood, to let us film there, but the lady wouldn't agree to that. So this is Julie's house. She's in my book group, and she actually appears later in the film holding the steak as one of the meat steak as one of the angry mob. This is her son Tom. He didn't know he was going to do this day. We turned up at the house. Julie wasn't there, but he knew that we were coming, and we just asked him to do this, and he was a very good sport and laid on the on the porch, smashed himself against the stone very hard, and did all that. So I'd have to thank him for that. So this whole sequence too, surprisingly, was very difficult because of audio. Julie lives on Homedale Street, and you would think it was a much quieter road than our place, but we had constantly cars and people going past, so it was an extremely difficult shoot for audio reasons as well. So I'm surprised that some of this turned out as well as it did, because we certainly had difficulties. This is the first time we see Lachlan as Count Jugula. Saying he smells the meat, which of course Leighton has brought up. We saw Leighton throwing that just then. It was actually me throwing it. Leighton actually couldn't get hoisted far enough back, and so I ended up having to throw it and try to match it to his arm movement. And I think it worked rather well, because if you probably haven't noticed that that's what was happening there. We wanted to make a bit of a joke with these teeth. We shot this after we shot this film in the dining room, and by that stage we'd already established the idea that the teeth were false teeth, because he throws them into a cup of water like an old lady later on. So we just want to sort of put that joke in again. This here is leading up to the fact that both our boys are colourblind, red-green colourblind, and so I've included that into the movie. Since we've gone to a black and white sequence, it seemed like a logical thing to do, especially since we're introducing the idea of red cordial once you get into it, substituting for blood in the vampire film. So Jenny makes a reference to it getting late here. You can see the sun on her face, so that was rather just lucky that happened actually. It was getting late in the day. We'd gone and shot it fairly late in the day after aborting an early morning shoot. So we're leading up to the sequence now where Leighton is taken in almost against his will. That's the way things done are here, as Jenny's character says, that he's taken in for the night. And of course we had to establish the fact that Jugula's picked up the meat, because that appears later. This took it was 3 different days we shot this, not this particular one, but 3 different attempts we made, and this was the 3rd one. It took 2 hours to shoot that little sequence, and then quite a long time to process it in the computer as well, to get that 10-second shot of the sun going down to establish the nighttime sequence here. All this blackness you see around was achieved with black cloth hung all around our dining room, because I wanted this sense of nowhereness, the sense that it wasn't our house, I guess, that it was actually in the house that you saw them entering, rather than being our own. I couldn't expect Julie to do a set in the house and be there night after night redoing shoots, because we did this whole thing over quite a number of nights, a few weeks in fact, this particular scene, reshooting and reshooting, trying to get the acting right and the timing right. The spiderweb you saw back there was a second. It's probably a bit hard to see, but some of these shots of Leighton, it's actually a different spiderweb. We shot that one night, and I decided I didn't like it, and we redid it. It's the main spiderweb you see, but you can see the old spiderweb in some of the shots, and I decided I wasn't going to reshoot that because Leighton, I think, felt he'd basically done his lines and that was it. We reshot this particular speech because Lachlan was a bit over the top when he first did the first shot. So there you can see the spider web there. That's the second spider web I did, and I think a far more successful version of it. Jen was great during this scene. In fact, Jen's always great. She's always on cue with the lines, and great acting for what she's required to do, and and just knows when to stop and hold things. So she's always been a great asset to try and get things right in the film. You can always rely upon her if you need to get the kids to do something again. So here, yes, we had a little joke about where that's the same shot. That what there is the same shot both times. when he does that, because I basically had forgotten to film another version, and I don't think it's really that obvious when you watch it the first time, maybe not even the second until it's pointed out to you. This shot here was actually Jen's idea, where she turns back around there, and I thought that was a rather good idea. It worked much better than what I'd planned. And where their hand is, are those little demon faces. They were just got off the internet, and I don't know why we put them there, just to help the horror theme out a little bit. So Jen's once again forcing him into a situation which he probably really shouldn't be in, which is being put to bed in Count Jugula's house. Not a good place to be. Of course, Lachlan, one of his best bits of acting here, love it, pulls out this, is so mischievous, and does that. That's real meat. He did that once, and that's all he wanted to do. Anyway, he was a good sport doing that. Jen just told me to go out and shoot this one night. She'd gone down the street and saw this brilliant full moon. I thought, yes, it'd be a nice shot to put over for this sequence. This sequence here with this music is actually taken from the movie Dracula. That is Bram Stoker's Dracula with Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves and others. And we shot this very, very quickly after we shot the last sequence in the dining room one night. I didn't plan it very well, but I think it actually turned out fairly well. I was going to put the black cloths down the hallway and everything, and in the end decided that we'd leave that alone. These clocks, the shots of the clock, the two shots of the clock, were actually done at the very time you see them in the middle of the day. So where it says 12 o'clock, you see midnight, it's actually 12 o'clock in the middle of the day. I shut down the house to cut down a lot of the light. But these shots here are done at night time, before the boys' bedtime, of course. Part of the idea, of course, here is to raise the horror theme, to give that sense of suspense that what's going to happen to Leighton. And of course the joke is that what Count Jugula is going to tie the two parts of the plot together, the Tommy and the Count Jugula plot, is it is really going for the red cordial. Of course, again substituting red cordial for blood. So this shot here we had to redo as well. Leighton coming out, we'd shot him from the side before, and he was just a little bit too upbeat. My fault really, and he came out and he did that brilliantly, and Lachlan just turns here and he's just so smug that it's wonderful. Of course, returning to the colour here, the idea is that Jimmy's realised that he's dreaming and we're coming out of the dream state. The colour comes back now. Of course, this little exchange then allows me to break the frame of the reality of the whole thing, and I come on as the vampire director. And of course, these two had to do this so much, this screaming, just to try and get this right, that they both were losing their voices by the end of this. And of course, this is my rather silly line. No, I'm not. These shots here of the boys and those close shots of me, none of those were done on the night these ladies were here. These are the ladies in my book group. There's Julie, the mother of Tom and owner of that house. There's Susan holding the pizza. The idea of the pizza was, Lachlan makes a reference to garlic on pizzas earlier on. Garlic obviously is not good for vampires. And of course, the joke with the cross was that Tonya is a vegan, a vegetarian, and is also into recycling and things like that. So we had a bit of fun with some of the characters there. The graveyard scene was also, of course, done on another night, and we had to do it right near dusk, and we had a lot of light problems there. But anyway, we tried. So here we're coming to the end of the movie. They're discussing the vampire who's just been, and Leighton's trying to work out what he's meaning by PC. Of course, he means Pet Cemetery. I just took that idea from, I think, a Stephen King story. The idea of Pet Cemetery, I think it was spelled differently though on Stephen King. And the last shot here. We have music rising here now. I found the a punk version of the Monster Mash on the internet, and when I heard it I just knew we had to end our film with it. But before we did that, I just wanted this last shot of Lachlan playing on the idea of Cranebrook, who always says just eats vegetables, being aroused on for biting one of his other fellow animals. This last sequence, I realised I could do this. Technically I could do this as I was learning more about the Adobe Premiere program. and so I decided that if we were going to have the punk version of the Monster Mash, then I also wanted our family actually performing it. So we borrowed the guitars and that from school, and we made a drum set out of some old pots and stuff. It was really difficult to film this, getting lip sync. It's not always successful in this sequence, but and getting the performance from everybody was extremely difficult. I guess the hardest thing, it was easy enough to shoot in one way, the performance was hard to get out, but the real difficulty was actually editing, and I think that probably shows in some sequences. But despite some of the problems with it, I think it was worth putting in at the end. It certainly sort of helped the ending of the movie a lot. Jen had a lot more vigorous movement in some spots. She did a few kicks in the back, which I somehow failed to get on film. And Leighton, we did a whole sequence where Leighton was bashing his drums and cutting them out from him. Yeah, so there's Lachlan there. We're cutting in from some lines here because he couldn't get this particular verse, so we just cut it in, and we had to do this. We just bought a whole bunch of MASH DVDs, and of course I couldn't resist the silly pun and that visual shot there. Darren Butler, my sister's fiance, who gave me a few pointers for making the movie. Gets a mention there, basically because some of the things we've done in this movie wouldn't have been possible without him doing that. And so, directed by Mark Bryce, that's me, and no vampires are harmed in the making of this film. Hope you enjoyed it, and maybe we'll make another one. Goodbye.